I used to be terrified of strangers. I'm not sure where this irrational fear stemmed from. Perhaps my mom's tales of getting kidnapped by truck drivers in the middle of the night and waking up in a bloody bathtub with a few missing organs, or nearly being carried away by a stranger as a child. Either way, I became someone who preferred to live within the confines of the familiar. I mean, wouldn't you? I became reluctant to meet new people, refusing to walk alone on the streets at night, even though Hong Kong is known for being one of the safest cities in the world. Wherever I went, I would give people my RBF, staring them down and projecting a "don't you dare touch me." I didn't trust that many people either. The idea of ripping my heart out and showcasing it for others to see, even if they were my closest friends, terrified me, and honestly, it still does. I had to learn to love humanity and realize that this hostility goes against our fundamental nature as human beings, and that it's something underlying society that affects its functioning greatly. Now, let me tell you about when I first had this realization. On a whim and in an attempt to step out of my comfort zone, I decided to sign up as an audience member in an event presented by Hong Kong Stories, where speakers could come and share a nugget of their experiences. The day arrived. Standing on the doorsteps leading towards the auditorium and seeing the light over the city fade to dusk, with life beginning to trickle out of the shadows, filling the air with a vibrancy that I'd never seen before, I was struck with fear. I began second-guessing whether I really wanted to meet these new people and hear their stories. My hands grew clammy with sweat, and my feet became glued to the floor. As the studio lights dimmed and the first person began to speak, I stepped in. Throughout the night, I listened to the story of a man who told us about his experiences as an English teacher in Mexico where he met his wife. I laughed at the story of the lady with the graying hair, a small voice but the widest smile I'd ever seen, telling us about her tripping on falling, lying on the floor until a handsome man saved her. I empathized with the story of a man with a mental illness who had endured the Hong Kong healthcare system and wanted to spread awareness of how others could help. By the end of the event, I was mesmerized, all fears and concerns pushed to the back of my mind. The only thought I could muster was, God, humans are great. By listening to others' stories, I am able to live a million lives, yet I can only begin to grasp the complexity of humanity. The world that I previously believed to be filled at danger with every turn was rather a breeding ground for the magic that can be found in the most mundane experiences. I just had to look for it. I think this notion can be captured in a Tumblr text post describing how humans are exceedingly precious, how we're essentially little creatures getting drunk off fermented grape juice and dancing under the waning light of the moon. Now, humans may be stupid, we may get into wars and pointless fights, but the life that we collectively live is one of wonder, of awe, and of magic. We're living through one of the most divisive times in human history. If you look at what's happening around us at the moment, the blatant polarization is terrifying. People are picking sides and ostracizing others, placing the value of their political beliefs over the human being that is voicing them. Look at what's happening in Hong Kong right now. Look at what's been happening in the United States. It's as if an us versus them situation is being manufactured every single second. Now, instead of listening to the other side, the unofficial rules people are adhering to are that the loudest voices win. And as a result, people aren't listening to each other. It's easy to think that your opinion's correct, that your opinion is the most important, but others have thought processes that are just as complex and have their own reasons for believing what they want to believe. We tend to forget that. And I've undergone the same frustration of trying to convince someone of my beliefs instead of having a respectful dialogue and listening to their equally valid opinion. Consequently, I've experienced the shame of realizing afterwards that in trying to convince the other side that my opinion is the only correct opinion, I'd forgotten that there is a human behind their beliefs, and I'd been too brash in my proceedings. In discussions like this, I've learned that the most important thing we can adopt is placing the human and their emotions above all else, and realizing that ultimately there's more that unites us than divides us. In an age where robots are becoming increasingly common, we've begun to question what truly makes us human, And I'd argue that it's this empathy, this intrinsic love for each other that can't be recreated using a scientific reductionist method. Ultimately, humans are wonderful. Stop and look at the person next to you. Stop and think about the people that you love and even the people that you hate. Every single one of them has their own vivid inner lives, billions of thoughts flying through their minds every second. Each one of them perceive the world in a different color, in a different way. And although this might seem like an obvious truism, it's something that we tend to forget. It's something that I forget as well. But if we manage to carry this belief through our daily lives, it might just make the world a little bit better. Now, I'll never be able to fully understand humans. But for me, this thought of meeting other human beings has morphed from inciting fear to becoming a reminder of the magic of humanity. This humanity that is ultimately what sets us apart, yet is also what brings us together. And it's what makes us who we are.